Okay, good evening. Everybody nice and warm from the snow? Thank you for coming to Nuts and Bolts of New Ventures Business Plans on a snowy night in Cambridge. My name is Joe Hadzima, and this is the first of 6 evenings we're going to have for the course. The course name is Nuts and Bolts of New Ventures and Business Plans. First of all, it's not really about the business plan itself. Think of it as we're going to talk about how to plan and execute a new venture. And don't think of a business plan as a fixed document in this course. It's a dynamic process we're going through. It may be a document, it may be a few slides, but at the end of the day, what it ends up being is a shared vision between you and your team as to where we are, where we're going, and how we plan to get there. So that's the goal of all of this. And I should also say, because I know some people in the audience are not doing traditional business ventures, we're going to use the business terms a lot, but this could equally apply to social developmental entrepreneurship, to nonprofits, even to governmental ventures. It's a way of thinking about how to organize new ideas and get them going. Now, a little bit about the course. This is the 25th year. It's hard for me to believe it's been 25 years for the course. And the founding of the course has an entrepreneurial lesson in it. So here's the backstory. I was teaching some things here on sort of legal stuff, and some students came up and said, you know, I think we had one entrepreneurship course at Sloan at the time, and they had taken that, and they said it's a great course, but it's not telling us anything practical. So could you do a course during IAP to tell us how to do something practical, how to start a company? So this was back 25 years ago, before the internet, and the IAP courses were in a fixed printed catalog that you would get. Shows you how far we've come. So I said, well, you know, I'll think about doing a course, and let me get back to you. Well, I got tied up with some other things. And then they came to me and said, we put it in the catalog, and we dare you not to show up. Interesting. So I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, I should be angry, but, you know, I think I have a customer. I think these people want something. So the first attribute was I had a customer. And all right, I'll play this game for a bit. Problem is, I only had 2 weeks to organize it. So that wasn't enough time to really do anything formal. So I said, I think it was 4 nights, and I said, all right, let me pick, we'll do, let's see, 2 hours, 3 hours, we'll do 8 topics, and I'll go and find some people who know about those, and how am I going to make it easy at the last minute to get these people? I said, just come into class, and whatever the field is that you're in, speak maybe 10 minutes on the 5 things I wish somebody had told me about whatever you're talking about before I got started, and then we'll do questions and answers. And I said, I got to make it entertaining, so I called up people and said, you know, do you know somebody who can do this talk? And if you do, you have to have seen the person, you know, talk. They have to be entertaining. You have to vouch for them. And so we did this in a period of 2 weeks, and probably half the speakers that showed up for that first session I had never met before. So I'm thinking, this is going to be a disaster, right? It turned out to be a great success. And I think the lessons for this about in an entrepreneurial way were I had a customer for a product. They wanted something. I was able to clearly define the task because I didn't have time to do anything more. If I had done it myself, it probably would have taken longer and not been as good. I got great people, and I was able to communicate to them what the task was, and then I got out of their way. And they did a great job. So there's an entrepreneurial lesson in how to start a company. Make sure you have customers, get great people. The whole business planning, new venture type thing is really trying to find what the task is and then to be able to communicate and execute on it. So the course really is an entrepreneurial venture. That's how we started, and later Joost basically figured out how we could get credit for it, and it's just blossomed ever since. So that's the background. In the 25 years, we've seen all sorts of things. We've seen bubbles, the internet bubble. I stood here thinking, I just read in the paper that Hotmail, back in 1997 or so, had started up and been sold in 18 months for $450 million, selling or basically giving away email. And I'm thinking, how am I going to explain to people this isn't the way it usually works in periods of time? More recently, Instagram. So there are some things that happen at points in time that defy direct logic on it. And if you can catch those waves, that becomes a good thing to do. We've also seen busts after the internet collapsed, after the financial markets collapsed. Actually, that is one of the best times to start a company. And many of the really enduring companies have been started during downtimes. And the reason is resources aren't available. There's financing dries up. You got to be really focused. You have to actually deliver something of value. And there's a lot of history about companies that get started during downtimes. But through all of that, ups and downs, it all boils down to really two basic thoughts. And we're going to touch on it over and over again in the course. And that is, whether it's a business, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a governmental project, the first thing you got to do is create value. So if you're not creating value, you can't really do anything. And then having created value, the question is, how do you capture some or all of that value to make what you're doing sustainable? And sustainable in the concept of traditional companies is profit. And in the context of developmental stuff, it can be, we can do it again, rinse and repeat. So when we look at creating value, we're going to be asking questions about who do we create value for? How much do we create? How much value do we create, and how do we create it? And then when we talk about capturing value, the traditional way has been for customers, somebody who will pay you for your goods, the product you do, or your services. And the trick, as we'll see in financial projections and the business model parts that will come in the next few days, is that whole process something where you can make enough money that you can continue it? So traditional capture of value is through customers. There are other ways to capture value in the area of advertising or monetization that we'll talk about also. And you think about things like where third parties provide that payment. So think of the U.S. healthcare system where historically the patient, the person who the value is delivered to, as in you're going to get treated, isn't really paying directly the cost of that. So sometimes figuring out how that works can be the challenging part. Okay. So at the end of the day, we're going to need, to make all this happy, we're going to need people. That's the number one thing you're going to need for a venture. Resources of some sort, either cash or partnerships. Skills, some of them you'll learn in this class, some of them you'll learn on the job. And then that one that's the hardest one to figure out, but if you can get it, it's the best, and that's called luck. I'll always go with some luck. So our goal for the course is basically to make sure you get infected with the entrepreneurial thinking virus. And it really is a virus that can be infectious. The good news is it's not known to be fatal. It's highly contagious. It is a lifelong affliction, so you'll have to get used to it. But at the end of the day, I think you'll really, if you catch it, you'll be in best shape.